What's going on, Z Warriors? Mr. Waffles here, and today is the first video of a new series that I call Dragon Countdown. So some might ask, what is Dragon Countdown? What is this all about? It's pretty simple. It's just a top 10 list of different cards in the card pool, different topics. So like top 10 blue physical cards, top 10 or top 5 sane events, things like that. So I know I haven't been around for a while, but again, busy with school and work, so I'm going to really try and get some more content up there. I have a lot of battle videos of me playing David Pena, a couple other people, from the case event that we had this past weekend. So a lot of cool things, a lot of deck profiles and stuff like that. So I really want to get all the stuff out there for you guys. So it does take some time just because right now I'm just a one-man team. So with school, work, girlfriend, everything like that, it's a lot. So just be patient with me, and again, thanks for still supporting me. I really appreciate it. Getting close to 600 subs and just moving on to that 1K. So I didn't have like a topic at first for the Dragon Countdown. I was trying to think like what top 10 list or top 5 list should I really do, but shout out to Kevin Dennis because he made a post on Retro, and that inspired me to do the top 10 named cards, in the game. So again, there's a lot to choose from, a lot of cards that, I thought about with my friends Mark Bolger, Brendan Ackerson, a couple of people that I was talking to, Kelly himself as well, trying to figure out like what are the top 10 like best named cards in the game. Not just like you have a lot of that are good, but like what would put one over the other. So I made like a little criteria of how I kind of gauge each card. The first one being just the playability of the card. So if you have the card in your hand, how good and how viable is it? Another one is utility. What can it do outside of just like what makes it good? Is it just a physical attack for +10? Is that it, or is it like +10 gain a stage, your opponent loses a stage, things like that? Just the utility of the card, how well it works again with other styles as well, not just one specific style. How well it works overall, as well as how well it works with other cards in the card pool. So all these things I'm trying to factor in because not every card is the same. Obviously Wheelo's Revival is different from, like Gohan's Power Punch, in terms of damage output. So can't really gauge them on the same way, but certain cards I feel right now are just really good, just how it works with almost every style and the cards in general. Not just the style, but again, the cards that it works with, that's very important. Which again, might be part of the style, but it's just how it just works overall. So without further ado, we're just going to go down the list. So, starting off the countdown, I put Andriod 17's Van at number 10. So, with the Van, again, it serves as an ally removal as well as an ally tutor card, which can be searched by 17. So, it's consistent in terms of, getting the card out as soon as, turn 1. It allows you just to maybe play 1 or 2 allies, not clogging it because you can search it out. And it allows you to get rid of your opponent's allies as well. So it's definitely a good card where you can really abuse, especially if you get to level 2. So I feel like card holds a lot of value in terms of being offense and defense. You're trying to push your way through a bunch of allies. Just use the Van to get rid of them. At the same time, if you want to get an ally, use the Van to get your ally. So it has a lot of value in that aspect. In terms of the card in other styles, like it's really good, I feel, or has a lot of use, I feel, in black. Anything like with black refusal, because you could search it out. So, it's pretty much a free destruction of 2 setups or drills, which is amazing. So I figure in black, whether perceptive or devious, the fact that any style in black, if you're running black, you can just use refusal, and you don't have to worry about having a setup or drill on the field because you can just search one out with 17. As for the other styles, its utility, I guess, in the other styles, I don't see it really like meshing like insanely well, other than like cards like Black Refusal, and maybe there's some cards out there, but again, that's why it's like number 10, I feel, because you put it in, if you're playing the 17 deck, you like put the Van in, but like there's very few cards that like really compliment you for having like a setup or something like that. So that's why I feel it's number 10 on the countdown. Number 9 is Lord Slug's Regeneration. So this card right here is just insane. Again, a lot of people don't see it coming. If you do any damage, whether it might be even 0 damage, they can just use it and just go up or down and rejuve. So Again, with Slug 1, hopefully you just get off that pretty quickly, and then you try to gain some anger on 2, so that way you can maybe if you get hit with an attack, go up to 3 and rejuve 8, or an insane amount of cards. And again, you can also drop down a level, so its use in red, in Rage, if you can drop down to draw a card, a lot of cool nifty things like that. Obviously Namekian with the whole rejuve aspect, but in other styles where you don't really rejuve that much, that rejuvenation factor allows you to gain some life cards back and into your deck where you normally don't in that style. Obviously Namekian is made for rejuvenation, so you expect a lot of rejuvenation, but in something like blue or orange and stuff, you don't really expect a lot of rejuvenation, so to have that card to give you some life cards back is very helpful. Again, it can be sphered, so it's something that you have to watch out for. But again, if they have the sphere, they have the sphere. If they don't, again, to really just go up to that free level is insane. And his level 3 is monstrous again, and it's level 4. So it's just a good, nice jump that you can that you would want in your deck, for sure. And then again, that rejuvenation factor. And I just like it just because it's a card, again, you can't really see coming. Sometimes they can just enter and pass, and you might think, like, what are they doing? Eventually, you're going to get attacked some point in the game. So that card's going to be live, and it's like, one of those cards where it's like, oh, man, it's a good, like, trap card, I would say, just because, it really just helps you speed up to the levels that you need to get to. Again, gets around wall breakers. So if you are wall breakered, and you're having trouble to level up or get the wall breaker off, Regen can help you skip up and just bypass that. So that's why it's number 9 on the countdown. So for number 8, again, this list was super hard. I put Andriod 19's Energy Absorption. I really like this card just because, again, you gain stages, you get a card back. So in terms of hand advantage, you don't lose any because let's say if you have 4 cards in your hand and then you use Absorption, now you're at 3. But then you can get an Andriod named card back to your hand, so you're still at the same in hand advantage. So to be able to use 19's Choke, or if you play in black, you can get what's it called, the back kick or something like that. The one where it counts as a name card for counts as a name card, things like that. So it adds a cool flexibility output in that, as well as gaining stages on the defense, which is always good, and the ability to cancel out any immediate effects of an energy attack. So, or in stare down, cancel it. Any other good one? I mean, that's pretty much like one of the only few like really good ones, but it just has a lot of versatility. Again, once we get like more crazy energy attacks, going into the mix, again, you can just use that to cancel it out and be able to just even the playing field. If you have a setup that you want to save and you're going against orange, you can save that setup or Dril from the orange stare down, things like that. In other styles, I would say, again, with black, like I said, to get that that name card back to your hand, black back strike or back kick or something like that, pretty cool. Again, in red, if you have a 19's Choke, you can get that to gain some anger. In orange, it's just good to have that card just to get some stages, so that way you can just unload on more energy attacks. In blue, if you're playing like a blue physical, it's good just to gain stages again and just pummel your opponent and hopefully just try and stage lock them, things like that. So I see this card being like good all around just because you gain the card back to your hand if you have one in your discard pile. So it just adds a lot of like versatility in that aspect. For number 7, we put Piccolo's Weighted Clothing at number 7 spot. Weighted Clothing, as you can tell, like Piccolo right now is one of the top decks. Weighted Clothing, again, is a card that no matter kind of if it goes in a discard pile or what, you gain some value out of it. Only time it's really bad is if you draw it on the defense and it's not in your hand already, so that way you can use it when entering. But other than that, again, it's solid because you gain 2 anger, and it just helps you speed up in whatever deck that you're trying to really play. Again, your opponent and you don't really expect it to show up anywhere in your discard pile, so when it does, it's always just like a nice surprise, and especially if you're winning the anger race and your opponent's trying to kill you before you anger out, and in doing so they help you turn over Weighted Clothing, then you get into anger and stuff right there to level up. So It's a good card to get you out of a pinch. Has synergy with if you're using the Piccolo level 1, the new one. If you have it in your hand, you gain stages, which lets you gain anger. Your opponent skips his action, then you banish it for 2 anger. So a lot of things like that. Just overall, just good card. Obviously, Namekian is insane. Any deck where you might feel like you want to try and level up from level 1, it's just a good card to have. You know, if you're playing orange and it's in your hand, you know, you can use an orange possession drill, draw 2 cards, and then discard the weighted clothing and use it for later. Things like that. So in black, again, if you really just want to level and you play an MPPV, it's another good card just to gain 2 anger. If you're using Devious, again, you can still discard it from your hand, even though your opponent won't discard a card from their hand. You still can use that and then banish it and then gain 2 anger. So it's just a good card where, you know, you're taking damage. You know, even if your opponent has like Devil or something to remove it, if you're taking damage and the card overturns on your action, you're just going to use it. So it's a card that's very hard to feel to get around and things like that. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure what the ruling is if they sphere it, if it's in the discard pile. I'm not sure if it just stays in the discard pile still, because it cancels out all the effects or something like that. But like I said, it's just overall disgusting card. I'm not sure if Piccolo players still use it. You know, but I think again it's a solid card for any deck that you're again trying to level and really shoot up there. Usually in blue you try to dominate, so you won't use it as much. But in black, you know, it's good. Namekian, good. Red, it's amazing. You know, things like that. Again, if you're using Enraged Mastery, you know, draw this card. You can draw a card and discard the weighted clothing, banish it for 2 anger, things like that. It's pretty disgusting. Or Face Break, discard it, draw, and banish. You know, 3 anger right there. So has a lot of uses elsewhere outside Namekian, which is good. So that's why it's in number 7 spot. So number 6, we have Raditz Offensive Guard. This card, again, like my friend Mark Bolger said, it's a non-sphereable Omni Block. You know, attack or defense, depending like what you might feel like your opponent might have. You know, if you want to go in, you know, you can do that and still attaches. If you want to sit back and just wait for them to throw something, you have that extra safety and secure block in your hand without worrying about sphere. So only card that really gets around is, I think, orange freezing drill. But other than that, you know, you'll be able to block an attack or attack with it. And again, it has the ability, the versatility to, you know, use it to put a setup into play. I think a setup or drill. Can't remember, but I definitely know at least a setup. Again, in that in its own self, you know, adds a whole nother engine, as Mark was and I were discussing about it. He said it, you know, just adds a whole element to the deck building if you have offensive guard in your deck. You know, Insane is searchable by body blow, so if you're like running some crazy like setup drill deck, you know, you can body blow into offensive guard and use that to put like a drill or setup into play or something like that. Again, the utility is insane. In black, you know, you have a lot of setups, so to be able to, you know, put black power up into play and then just use it later on, or Visage or anything, you know, anything that you know you have setups or drills, you know, VTP and all this stuff, Red Blaze, you know, all across the board. You're at least playing a couple setups, at least maybe VTP, you know, so to be able to use that and make sure your hand is not as dead is amazing. The best, again, is like if you draw, let's say, 2 setups or something like that, you can use offensive guard to block it, so that way you make your hand, which is already bad, not as bad, because then you can use it to put one setup into play, and then on your turn you can play the other setup. So instead of discarding one of those setups, you at least get the benefit of those 2 setups. So that's why we have Raditz Offensive Guard at number 6. For number 5, we have Andriod 18's Energy Toss. So the reason I have 18's Toss up there is because of its versatility. Again, you can search either any Andriod name card. So either, you know, her Arm Break, which could potentially be a combat ender, an ally will go into play, and a drill, which will go into play. So I feel like it has value no matter what, and has utility, which I put at the number 4 spot. Again, no matter what deck you're using, you know, you can just tack one Andriod attack and drill in there, and then you'll be able to search it out, no problem, things like that. So just to be able to have something for whatever situation is good at the cost of 2 stages. So if like you use toss and you're low in stages, you get arm breaked, hopefully end the combat. If you at the same time, you can also get an ally, so that way they can soak up some stages and stuff like that. You know, you can get 20 to make energy attack 4 life cards unpreventable. So it just adds a whole different element and aspect to the game. Again, we're I don't like to also think too far ahead with these name cards, but 18's Energy Toss is something that I think will get better over time, especially when we get like a Hero 18 MP stack. So she might have new name cards like Vegeta did. We don't know, but just to add that extra mix, if we do have a new 18 stack and she has like at least one new name card, it's also searchable by Toss. So again, I like the versatility of it. It's good in any style because you don't have to clog your deck with so many Andriod named cards because you can just search them out. So that's why 18's Toss is number 4 on the list. Sorry, number 5. Number 4, we have Andriod 20's Domination. So this card, again, has full value the moment you play it. All your opponents, I think, personalities lose on one stage. 3 life cards, name a card, search their deck to banish it, except for Dragon Ball. And you get to choose a non-event card and stack it on top of your deck. So again, a lot of things going on. Has endurance as well, so be able to, if it ever turns over, you can just banish it and things like that. And if you play Defiant Challenge, get it back, things like that. But just be able to, again, look to your opponent's deck and see. It offers that aspect of black that other styles don't. So if you want to use 20 and blue or red, let's say like red for example, you're not really searching your opponent's deck for cards. So to be able to have that knowledge, and inside knowledge of your opponent's deck, to fit in any style is really good and very flexible. And to be able to stack a card on top that's not an event is also huge as well. So I know I was playing Dave Pena. We have the video recorded. I was playing my red Turles, Ruthless Turles, against his 20 black, and he just demolished me, like 2-0'd me. And it's crazy because he defensive burst, stop all my physical, and then 20's Domination, and then stack the defensive burst on top. So if I didn't draw another physical block on the defense, if he entered, I'm facing another defensive burst. So depending on certain styles, it's really disgusting. I mean, to be able to blue head knock and then use head knock again, or you can get setups for Dril, so it's not limited to just energy combat, physical combat cards, even setups for Drills. So if on the defense, they're entering on you and you take damage, and all of a sudden like Dril goes on into your discard pile, you can Domination and then get that Dril back for your turn to make sure it's it's live and everything like that. So it offers a lot of flexibility, and the 3 life is always good, and your opponent losing the stage. So I put it at the number 4 spot, just because you can see, again, certain decks, like again blue, red, anything that's not black, it's harder to kind of call the card. Normally you just call time or something that's very obvious, but in black, you're normally like searching your 3 opponent's deck beforehand and things like that, so that way the card is more has more value in terms of the card that you name. But at least it just offers every style to be like have that little black aspect in it. For number 3, we have Dr.Wheelo's Revival. Again, this card, of course, is obviously bad to draw on the defense, but when you have it in play, to be able to shut down time, stare down, confront, hybrid defense, anything, is very good, especially in like the later game. It shuffles back into your deck, so if your opponent ever hits you, they're taking damage. So it offers that flexibility on both the offense and defensive side, where offensively you can use it, gain the stages, which is basically a free energy attack. And then on the defense, if they hit you, they have a chance to potentially hit that revival and take 3. Sure, like Lookout Drill, things like that. You have some counters to it, but I still put it at number 3 just because to be able to shut down your opponent's hand. So many times, people are just holding like time and like Confer or something like that, thinking that they're safe. And to know like you enter with Revival and they kind of forget about it, it's like, oh, like yeah, if you have Revival on the board, it forces your opponent to either like keep the time, or like let's say an event, or not, because they know that you can just use it at any time. So really force your opponent to really play and think like, okay, should I just really have like a 3-card hand and just risk just holding the time because I know he's going to Revival, and just try and use it for next combat if possible. All that stuff, especially if you're playing like an aggressive Wheelo, whether it be like orange, black, or something like that, playing something more aggressive and you're at 2, you can put on the pressure, and then that way if you ever receive damage from your opponent, the Revival help cushion that, so that way you would always kind of stay ahead in life cards and advantage like that, because the +2 buff from Wheelo level 2. So being able to shut down your opponent's hand, potentially just making a completely dead hand, at the same time gaining stages to help you against certain matchups, help you use those stages to maybe launch another attack or something like that. So always helpful, and it shuffles back in. So if your opponent passes, if you enter and like use Revival, shuffle back in, and then you do your stuff, and then your opponent's turn he passes, and you draw Revival again, you can just use it again. So kind of forces your opponent to have to really enter on you to make sure that that Revival isn't drawn on your turn, and then have you use it again. So all that stuff, which is really good. That's why it's number 3 on the countdown. Number 2, we have Andriod 20 Scout and Drill. So this card, again, is searchable. You can play as many copies as you want on the field. To be able to take like a 10 life card hit and then just destroy the top 2 cards is insane. It's just definitely one of the best drills out there right now for sure. Even though it's just restricted to 20 himself. But again, hence why it's just all the name cards that we're talking about. But it's just amazing in that aspect. Be able to just take damage and just almost nullify it completely. I don't think there's much to be said. I mean, if you're playing 20 in any style, to be able to have a drill that buffers damage and maybe lessen on the energy blocks, instead of running like 6, you might run 3, because you still want to stop some attacks, because again, it doesn't stop hit effects from activating, but to be able to just take that damage and just cushion it so that way you can be more offensive is amazing in any style, no matter what. And we have some honorable mentions. Some of them include Nail's Dashing Attack, which I really like, but just couldn't quite make the list just because, I mean, it's definitely a good card. It's solid because in any style, if you're playing orange, it's searchable by Uppercut. Namekian is searchable by Overtime. If you're playing red, you can get it back with Heel Kick. If you're playing blue, you can stack it with Position Drill. With black, you can discard it for the Mastery. At the same time, it has a lot of versatility in pretty much every style and searchable in most of the styles. But I mean, just right now, like, I just didn't feel like it kind of made the cut compared to all the other ones. It's definitely good, and it's like squeaking in right there between like almost going to like the top 10 list for sure. Other honorable mentions include Vegeta's Gallic Gun. Again, solid card. Energy attack, 6 life cards, unpreventable for hits, raise your anger 1, but again, it has to hit. So it's one of those kind of like Hail Mary, like last-ditch effort kind of things. And especially if your opponent knows you're playing Vegeta, they're kind of expecting the Gallic Gun, things like that. Obviously, not all the time they're going to have the block for it, but it just didn't quite make the list. And another honorable mention was Tien's Prep. Again, solid card by all means, but again, you're destroying 2 after you have to banish the top card. You've already taken so much. Again, you banish 1 top of your deck to search it out with Tien, then you mill 2, you use it, and then you draw a card. So you thin your deck by so much, and you hope the card that you draw is something relevant. It's just all, I feel like, pretty much a gamble. Nothing really consistent with that, other than the fact that you can search it out. So that's why those are like the honorable mentions so far. There's probably a couple more, but I just wanted to just keep it to 3. So now, further ado, the number 1 name card in the game is, wait for it, Turles Stupid Fruit. Okay, so this card right here is probably the best name card in the game. Searchable by Saying Freedom. Lets you, again, advance, lets you skip, jump from one level to another. It's a setup, so it's, great to draw on the defense. Obviously, I'm just kidding, because the card just sucks and is horrible. The number 1 spot obviously goes to Krillin's Destructo Disc. And before anyone like rages or gets upset, again, this is not me bashing D-Disc. No, it's, that's not what it's about. Again, it's a top 10 list. Again, each of the cards that are on the list doesn't mean like one's significantly better than the other. They're really like better by small margins, but I had to really, again, make a list, so something had to go somewhere. So just because something's at 4 and something's at 5 doesn't mean that, the one at 4 is completely better than the top 5 spot. These are just very small margins, but I definitely feel Krillin's Destructo Disc outclasses all these cards by far. Reason being, again, unpreventable damage, unstoppable damage. So if your opponent has 20 Scout and Drill, which again, is number 2, it doesn't matter because they're still taking 4 life cards of damage. It's the only card I feel that's actually a name card that's actually a win condition, especially later in the game. If you notice with the game, physical attacks usually tend to peak in the early stages of the game where you can try and pummel your opponent down. But later in the game, as the game starts to stabilize a bit, physical attacks aren't really as effective. Whereas energy attacks I feel are constant throughout and probably spike up a little towards the end game because think about it, if your opponent has 5 life cards and you throw an energy attack for 6 as opposed to a physical attack for like 5, obviously, one can probably end the game and the other just prolongs it a bit. So late game energy attacks or just life card damage of attacks, like choke and stuff like that, are very effective towards the end game. That's why Krillin's Destructo Disc is very powerful. Again, D-Disc, in the decks that abuse it like black and orange and stuff like that, get the benefit of the +1 buff without any worries, automatic crit. The reason why it's probably the best named card is because of its synergy with almost every style. Obviously, you see in black, the +1 life, so it makes it 5, plus the stage. Cards like Erasing Drill, so your opponent has Hiding Drill out to modify it, to reduce the damage. You D-Disc, if successful, you blow up the Hiding Drill and they take the damage. If you're playing against physical decks, you can upward dodge and then D-Disc for like 9 or something like that. It's ridiculous. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's the thing. Again, all the other cards can either be countered with Sphere or can be blocked or something like that, or it can be removed off the field. With D-Disc, if it's in your hand, it's in your hand. If your opponent has a Deadbolt to banish it, they already took the damage, so it's whatever. The fact that I would take a banishment of a D-Disc if it means my opponent loses like almost 1/10 his deck any day. And again, that I still have 2 more in the deck. Cards like Energy Phase and Drill, Energy Orange Phase and Drill and Orange Dandrill. Again, to be able to know that this card's going through no matter what, so you can blow up a card for free, and then also look through your opponent's deck. So if you're playing orange, you can D-Disc, and if you have Dandrill, you search through your opponent's deck, so that's already 1 life card, and then they're taking 5, so that's 6 right there. If you have Aura Drill, and DB1 out or something like that, it's ridiculous. To be able to modify it, it's not banish after use, definitely takes the top spot for sure. Again, it's not me being biased, but if, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just looking at it as like a win condition. You enter on your opponent has, let's say, 10 cards left in their deck. You enter, they draw 3, so they're down to 7, and then you D-Disc. Depending on how much modifiers, you could pretty much just end the game right there on the spot. We see it all the time with Dragon Ball 7, D-Disc time kind of combos. It's ridiculous. They take 3 damage right there. Then they draw 3, and then they're taking like 6 or something like that. D-Disc in itself is a win condition. All the other cards aren't win conditions, and that's why it's the #1 spot. It's not about like, oh, D-Disc is broken, this and that. It's the only card that's really a win condition. Sinister Choke, again, your opponent can try and play around it by not having a set of 7 either drills, personalities, Dragon Balls, things like that. And it could also be stopped, if they have less than 7. With D-Disc, it can't be stopped. So it doesn't matter how good you are as a player. If you're holding an energy defense in your hand and your opponent goes Galagun, and you're like, well, I don't lose. Stop it. Now, if you have the same energy defense in your hand, your opponent goes Krillin's Destructo Disc, you lose. So it doesn't matter the fact that, you had an energy block, doesn't matter how good you played. D-Disc is just going to eliminate all that. And again, if you have a Raditz Offensive Guard, again, all these cards that are on the list, D-Disc clearly outshines them. You have Offensive Guard, doesn't matter, D-Disc, you're still taking the damage. You have Scout and Drill, D-Disc, you're still taking the damage, and that's just that's the bottom line of it. If you're playing Red Ruthless, you can do cool things where you can D-Disc and then Mastery, D-Disc again. If you're playing blue, all you need is a blue lifting drill out to make it crit. You can D-Disc, and then you can use cards like Blue Narrow Escape to stack the D-Disc back on top again to use it for later. Again, cards like VTP, and just be able to recycle these discs over and over again really just widens the gap, because you can just D-Disc and kind of just sit there and know that you're already an advantage of life card damage just because of that one attack that they can't do anything about. And for me, again, that's why I have to definitely put D-Disc at the #1 spot, just because it's synergy. Again, it's not me bashing it. Synergy with red, let's say again Ruthless, and be able to potentially use Detus twice. That's 8 life cards that you can't do anything about. That again is unpreventable, not banished after use, unstoppable damage, and for nothing. In blue, you can again use Detus. If you have Lift and Dril 5 life cards, you have Narrow Escape to put them back on top. In black and orange, as you know, that it's really good. So again, as for people saying like counters to Detus, it's not so much like the counters. It's just their counters to Detus aren't really counters. Again, if someone tells me like play Garlic, play Hide and Drill, now you're telling me that I need to play a certain MP to counter a card. If anything, that shows me how powerful a card is. If someone's playing Raditz Offensive Guard or something like that, I'm not thinking, oh well, I scuba, I'm gonna go play a different NP to counter it. No, because it's it is what it is. But if you're telling me to play a certain MP, to counter Detus, that's when you know how good a card is, because it tells you, dictates, I guess, what kind of decks you should really play, and that's not good for the game, as you know. So again, there are cards that can modify it, but again, it's for the time being, and they're only as good as if I have the D-Disc in hand anyway. So if you like Red Destiny and I don't have the D-Disc, sure, you take the -2/-2, but then the next time if I draw D-Disc and use it, well, you're still taking the damage anyway. So again, whether you banish it or not, the damage has already been dealt. It is what it is. And if D-Disc was made banished after use, I don't even know if that would be a good thing, because Defiant Challenge is a card now. So if D-Disc did say banish after use, Defiant Challenge, get it back and use it again. It's just if banishment removal really becomes a thing for D-Disc, they can definitely just run Defiant Challenge if they wanted to, tech like 1 or 2 copies, and try and use it again. So it really really doesn't matter. And again, it's the synergy with all the cards, because if I'm playing against 17 that he uses in the van, I'm not gonna throw my hands up and then just call it, like, use a different MP to counter the van. You can counter it by either Nappa, Betrayal, things like that, because it sits there on the field until it has its use. With D-Disc, if it's in my hand, it's, again, nothing you can do about it. So hope you guys like my countdown. Again, it's not to bash D-Disc or anything like that. Again, it's just the top 10 name cards I felt were just the best name cards in the game right now. Again, D-Disc being #1 because of, again, its synergy with all the other cards in the card pool and all the different styles. And again, in future, we're going to get a new Krillin stack, so he's going to be stronger. So how much is the physical damage really going to hurt? Right now, he's in B for the most part, for most players who like to stick at 1, so I guess physicals hurt him. But as he gets stronger, his power levels are going to increase. So what do you say then? Krillin's going to be an MP throughout the entire game, so he's only going to get stronger levels, where D-Disc is still going to be there, and physical attacks won't hurt him as much anyway. And with his power up rating of 3, could at least always guarantee 1 D-Disc to go through. So that's what makes it a very devastating card for sure. Just because you as a player, again, you're doing, you're playing the best that you can, but if there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do. Most of these attacks can be stopped, or aren't really, again, game-winning cards. D-Disc can, again, end the game. If you have 5 cards and your opponent goes 20's Domination, you can potentially block that and hopefully live another turn. If someone D-Discs you, that's it. So ask yourself, what do you think the top 10 best name cards are? Do you like my list? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know in the comment section below, and definitely post some other suggestions. Again, let me know all your feedback. I love it. And until next time, Z Warriors, this is the top 10 name list in the game right now. Let me know what you guys think, and this definitely going to be changing up a lot more, because we're going to have new MPs in set 5 with Yamcha, Cell, Roshi, and stuff like that. So until next time, Z Warriors, Mr. Waffles out.